Our next speaker is Ambassador Ronald Barnes. He was first appointed as the Director of Foreign Relations by the Tununok Elders Council and is chair of the Indigenous Peoples and Nations Coalitions for Alaska. The entity is designated as a free political institution and is now supported by the vast majority of tribal governments in Alaska. Ambassador Barnes resides in Geneva and is the head of mission for the Alaska decolonization movement. He has worked tirelessly for nearly 30 years in advocacy for the rights of the indigenous peoples of Alaska. Ambassador Barnes, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Robert, and greetings to everyone. I'm very glad to bring you this information, some exciting news. The United States of America third cycle Universal Periodic Review will be coming up in this November of 2020, and we submitted shadow reports, and in these shadow reports we gave accounts of some of the work we presented over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So it's an accumulation of work that gives a history on the international legal and political status of Alaska. Where does Alaska get this status? Well, first of all, we were placed here by our Creator, and then we had people come from Russia, and they landed in Alaska, and then as time went by, other merchants came to trade. As the Russian merchants were trading with us, it was ordered by ukazes or decrees of the Russian imperial monarchy that they were to get permission to make trading forts, and they were not to create the mere thought or suspicion as if they were attempting to take away our independence. So the thought of our being independent and in charge of our own sovereign domain was characterized and recognized by those who came first. Of course, when other merchants came to Alaska, the Russian monarchy was losing out on its fur trade. So what they did was they issued another ukase asking for all of the other merchants from other countries to go through the trading forts. The response from the United States of America is recognition by the United States of America itself, by Great Britain and other European powers that we were independent, characterizing us as independent tribes inhabiting an independent territory. Now, what happened when this occurred is, of course, the monarchy responded, but it still held the same status because they used Vattel and his Treatise Law of Nations to state that we were equal and on the same plane as European nations. And this was all determined by the 1903 Alaska tribunal that determined the line of demarcation between Alaska and Canada. And this boundary is still unsettled, something that international legal experts and lawyers say makes our case stronger. And following this, because of this background, many people say, why was Alaska recognized at a high level? Because the United States and other European nations did not want the monarchy of Russia to gain a trade monopoly with China. So we continued to live and to govern ourselves. And in 1946, Alaska was placed on the list of non-self-governing territories. In this process, what the United States did by admitting under the law of nations and international law is that we were free, that we were separate and distinct as nations and peoples who have the right to determine their own status. Of course, this worried the United States because they believed that the 1867 treaty granted them footing into Alaska. We are very fortunate that a United Nations report on treaties, agreements, and constructive arrangements stated that the 1867 treaty of cession between the monarchy of Russia and the United States of America granted neither title or jurisdiction to the United States of America. This, under the UN Charter, places on an equal plane under Article 1 with the equal right and self-determination, as Miguel Alfonso Martinez stated in his report. Now, of course, where does this place us today, given that Alaska was placed there? There was a referendum in 1958. And as we sit, we can see that Alaska is the so-called 49th state of the Union of the United States of America. When we reviewed the history, we began to see that resolutions adopted by the General Assembly made it clear that our Indigenous peoples in Alaska were supposed to know, to speak on the matter of our international legal and political status. We were supposed to know on what rights we possess, and prior to any referendum or vote to clarify or to choose a status, which was already designated as independent by the United States of America and Great Britain and other European nations, our level of relationship as we choose it was violated because we did not consent, we did not vote, we did not participate equally. In fact, the 1958 referendum is followed by two major cases. And of course, Alfred Desaias, who we appreciate very much, who have been assisting Alaska and Hawaii as we move to annul General Assembly Resolution 1469, adopted in 1959, from the list so that we can be reinstated and move towards restoration of our international status. So what was it in the memorandum that Alfred Morris Desaias stated? I will read to you what he did say. He said, the United States Supreme Court instituted doctrines of superiority and racial discrimination in law and policy by the Teton v. United States of America, 348 U.S. 272 in 1955, making it clear in footnote 18 that this purpose and acquisition and its effect on land held by the natives of the Philippines was distinguished from the settlement of the white race in the United States, where the dominant purpose of the whites in America was to occupy the land. Further, the Teton judgment relies on the precedents of the Johnson v. McIntosh, 21 U.S. 543, 1823 case, which held that the character and religion of the native inhabitants of America justified, and I quote from the case, considering them as a people over whom the superior genius of Europe might claim an ascendancy, unquote. He states clearly the denial of the right of self-determination on grounds of racial discrimination and the application of doctrines of superiority constitutes a crimes against humanity and is tantamount to a form of apartheid. This great memo, and that we're very thankful for, from Alfred, is a violation of two resolutions that were adopted by the United Nations, General Assembly Resolution 644 and reaffirmed in 1958 by GA Resolution 1328, that in administering territories you must examine and abolish all racially discriminating law and policy. So where does that leave us today? Aside from all the other resolutions that were violated, and when the debate came for removing Alaska from the list of non-self-governing territories, some states made some observations. In the Committee on Information, which is the Decolonization Committee, what they stated is that Resolution 1469 stated that all non-self-governing territories, during the deliberations, they stated non-self-governing territories fell outside of Article 2, Paragraph 7 of the UN Charter and can be discussed or deliberated in pursuant to Article 10 that gave the General Assembly the right to discuss all aspects of the scope of the Charter, and that the statute of limitations did not apply to any non-self-governing territory if it did not vote. African states accuse European states denial of due process and procedure in granting Alaska and Hawaii as a gift to the United States of America for its support in defeating the Axis powers during World War II. One African state went so far as to accuse the EU states of democratic despotism. So now with the work that we've done and during the second cycle UPR, Pakistan asked for the United States of America to send Alaska and Hawaii and other cases to the UN Decolonization Committee for review. We are working towards 1469 General Assembly resolution to be annulled. And we are asking for your support, and we are asking for you to look on the internet for information that we've disseminated and to support us. So with those that I'm working with in Hawaii and all those that supported in Alaska through the resolution Alaska Intertribal Council 205-10 that granted us authority to pursue this case until we achieve our goals. So I thank you very much.